1. It was 11:30 p.m. on a Saturday, a week before sophomore year when all this went down. I was walking along the sidewalk with my best friend. My twin brother was biking beside us, trying to perfect a wheelie. I know it wasn't smart to be outside this late without an adult or a car, but it was a relatively safe neighborhood, and my brother was always equipped with a knife. The only bad thing I remember ever happening was a bank getting robbed a few years back. Curfew wasn't until midnight, which was getting closer, so we decided on staying out until then. We'd just been a street away from where my house was. The street we were on was the main road, and the only people that had driven past so far were teenagers. My best friend and I sat on a bench outside a bar and restaurant that was closed for the night, while my brother was doing wheelies all the way down the street and back. He had gotten really good at doing tricks on that bike. Me, on the other hand, had asthma, and got out of breath from going upstairs. My best friend hadn't had many great experiences with law enforcement, so when a police car drove past us slowly, she rolled her eyes and said he probably thought we were smoking. She was right. Most of the kids where we lived were getting caught smoking almost daily. The officer continued past us and stopped a good amount away up the road. He was still in sight, but far. As teenage girls do, we were talking about all the guys we liked. I brought up my brother since they used to date in the past. Would you ever go out with him again? I asked, expecting a no or an ew. She hesitated before answering with a yes. I was full of disgust and excitement all at once, when I followed up with an explosion of questions. Meanwhile, my brother had gotten closer and eventually stopped in front of us to brag about his biggest wheelie yet. His rant was cut short when a small silver car drove past. An older man with what looked like a grey mullet and red shirt yelled out of his window, "Hi, hotties!" He turned right at the intersection and out of sight. His voice sounded weirdly high-pitched, as if he was purposely trying to sound creepy. I stayed quiet, refusing to entertain him. My brother, being the smart-ass he was, gave a loud hello, and my friend did the same. I asked if they had heard what he said, and my brother nodded. My friend had only heard the word hi and got angry when I told her about the extra word in that sentence. She went off for a minute about how it was disgusting for an older man to say that to two teenage girls. After she was done, I remember jokingly saying, "Watch him come back." Oh, and that he did. Minutes had gone by and my brother was down the road when the same man in the silver car came by again on the opposite side of the road. His window was still down, but this time he said nothing. His smile said everything for him. Too shocked to speak, I waited until he passed the police officer and went right down a different road that could lead him exactly back to where we were. From far off, I could see his car signal. He was turning onto the road to come back toward us. On top of that smile and the fact that he was about to come back, my stomach dropped, but I didn't move. My friend, on the other hand, jumped up and started bawling. Her crying surprised me, because of the fact that I didn't have a lot of feelings. It's hard to explain, but long ago I was prescribed pills by a doctor that has somehow blocked me from feeling certain bad things. I usually don't feel sad or embarrassed, even if I should. Seeing her crying, I finally moved and stood in front of her. I wasn't sure what to say, but my brother sped back towards us to see what had happened. I looked to my left to see if the officer was around. He had left, and the silver car was about to get closer. I tried to get out as much comforting words as possible, while pushing her towards the nearest alley that led to my house. We needed to get off the main road before he saw where we were going. Soon enough, I got them both down an alley where we hid behind a wall and paused. From where we were, we could see my house. If we ran straight for about a few parking lot lengths, then we'd be there. We listened as a few more cars passed, and I remember thinking he saw us running and knew to drive down the alley. Luckily for us, nothing happened, and the minute it was quiet, we booked it. My brother made sure to ride behind us until we got back to the house. Everything happened so quickly. He fumbled for his keys as my friend and I glanced back at the main road a few times. The last time I looked was when I was standing in the doorway. That was the last time I saw him. I wasn't sure if he saw me, But if he did, he knows where I live. I work part-time at the grocery store in the town, and when I think of it, I try to look out for a customer that might match his description. Hopefully I'll never see him. To the man in the silver car, let's not meet. 2. Okay, so let me preface this by saying that I am not someone who gets scared easily, nor am I someone who tends to overreact. While I have the regular fears of a 20-year-old female, I am actually pretty strong and in shape, and I've worked in several difficult manual labor jobs and have been in a few fights. Needless to say, I am not the type to freak out over something small. Whenever I have creepy experiences with men in public or something, I am the type to respond with a fuck off and a pepper spray rather than a panic attack. The following story definitely wasn't something I made up in the middle of the night or a prank pulled by someone I knew. Some friends and I had moved into a new apartment, 4 of us, all girls between the age of 18 and 20. Additional relevant info is that we have a cat. The apartment is one of those luxury-style Southern California apartments in a gated community. We live in a really safe area, and our apartments are expensive enough that most of the people in the complex are older couples, think retired. Thus, when we moved in, we assumed that there was no safer place we could be. This gated apartment complex is located in an area that pretty much only contains other apartment complexes, and then a couple super gentrified shopping centers. And it is really difficult to access these apartments by foot due to the layout of the surrounding busy roads. This happened on the 3rd night of us living there. My roommates and I had all been pretty exhausted from building furniture and shit all day, so we all passed out by like 9 p.m., which is unusual for us. As a result of this, apparently we didn't lock the front door because we all fell asleep. At around 2 p.m., my roommate began waking me up. She was panicking and whispering in my ear, but so quietly I couldn't hear her. Confused, it took me a couple moments to realize she was saying, "Listen, I think there's someone in the house." I sat up, and we sat there in my bed silently, listening to what sounded like whispering voices outside our closed bedroom door. One of the voices was far too quiet to make out, but the second voice clearly said the sentence, "I think this is the girls' room." Frozen, my roommate and I looked at each other. The weirdest thing was not the content of the voice, but the voice itself. The voice definitely belonged to an older woman. Think a Susan or a Mary who runs a PTA and drives a minivan type of voice. The second voice answered again. This voice was so quiet we could not make out anything about it. Then there was a sound of shushing, and the woman's voice said, "It's just a cat." At this point, footsteps walked away from the door, and we heard the sound of shuffling papers. My roommate and I were frozen. I know this is when you should call the cops or something, but we were so terrified we sat in silence in my room. After about 10 minutes of this, we get a text from my other roommate whose bedroom is across the apartment saying, "I think there's someone in the house." At this point, I'm panicked as fuck because there's no way we're imagining this. Finally, we hear the front door close. My bedroom is really close to the front door. We wait for about 20 minutes until we're certain we haven't heard anything else. My roommate calls 911 and I grab the heaviest weapon-like object I can find. Humorously, this was my bong, and charge into the living room, turning on all the lights and searching the apartment. I see the unlocked front door and realize the mistake we had made. The house is clear, but my cat slinks out from behind the couch, hissing and freaking out, which is not at all like him. Essentially, neither the police nor the people who own the apartment complex have any idea what happened. My other roommates across the apartment didn't hear any conversation, just footsteps and the sound of shuffling papers on a desk that's outside their bedroom door. The weirdest shit is they didn't steal anything, even though we have a flat screen and Xbox, speakers, etc. right there in the living room. Add to that the fact that one of the intruders was a woman and neither of them entered any bedroom. So what the fuck was the point of breaking in? At first, we were really weirded out by the statement about the girls' room, because that clearly showed they knew us. but we later realized that we had pictures of us we were planning to hang up, spread out all across the table you first see upon entering the apartment. The fact that the intruder saw all those pictures freaks me the fuck out. To this day, nothing new has happened, but I'm convinced the intruder must be someone who lives in the apartment complex, due to the super safe location and fact that there are 2 gates you have to go through to reach the apartment. Every time I pass an older woman on the way to the mailbox, I'm looking to see if she gives me a strange glance. Thankfully, nothing was stolen, broken, or harmed. However, creepy people who decided to walk around in my apartment in the night for no apparent reason. Let's not meet again. Update. Just letting you guys know, there are cameras throughout the complex, but according to the apartment complex owners, nothing weird was picked up or seen. Also, we took the advice and talked to our neighbors, who we know a bit at this point, as we've lived in the place for a couple months. And none of them had ever had anything weird happen at their apartments. But they're also all old. Being young females, we are a little out of place in this community, so it makes sense to me that the older people living around me haven't experienced the same kinds of creepiness. 3. I have been drugged and roofied 3 times, once in high school and twice when I was in college. I am no stranger to the effects of being drugged, and it's a brutal experience as a whole. My worst was my 3rd and hopefully last time it had happened. At the time, about 22 years old and finishing up college, I was using Tinder and had met a few folks where we chatted. Had gone on some dates, etc. Nothing very serious. This one week I had 2 dates planned, the first one on Friday with an EMT for sushi and drinks downtown, and the second to the State Fair on Sunday. Come Friday, I ironically had left a note for my roommate at the time, with the EMT Tinder guy's name, his Facebook info and general info because of my hyperparanoia, yay anxiety. He picked me up and we went to sushi. First and foremost, this had to be one of the rudest men I have ever encountered. I am talking yelling at waitstaff, complaining about everything and being a general dickhole. I was completely over any interest in this guy almost immediately, but I didn't want to be the date and dash kind of person. So I finished my beverage, excused myself to the bathroom, and mass texted some friends about meeting up downtown so they could save me from him. A pair of friends already planning on going out agreed to meet me out. In the meantime, Asshat and I go to a local bar to grab a beer. I buy us 2 bottles, trying to be smart here, having been roofied before, and don't let it leave my sight. We drink them, and he, of course, continues to be a douche. Eventually he asks if we want to go somewhere else. Since it was encroaching the time my friends said they would be going downtown to meet me, I suggested the spot where the save was gonna go down. We walk there, burning off the 2.5 rolls of sushi I ate, 1 margarita at dinner and 1 beer from the last place. Now keep in mind, as I am not a lightweight, and at 5'8" and 135 pounds, I can handle my drinks, especially when spread out over the course of about 3 or so hours. We arrive at the bar and get another drink. I ordered a vodka soda and he a beer. We go to sit at the table, positioned so I can see the front door, and sort of chat as I'm really trying not to say something rude as fuck to him for the way he treated people at the restaurant and more. Finally my friends walk in and I jump up and call their names. Thank God they are here. They walk over and say hey. I half introduce them to Tinder Turd, and step aside from the table to give them a hug, and ask them to come with me to the bathroom. I turn back towards the table where the guy is sitting, also where I left my drink for about 2 minutes. Stupid me. And my friends and I head to the bathroom to plot my escape strategy. The plan was for me to go with them to the bar to get a drink. We would get lost in the crowd, they'd get a beer, and we would head out. It worked just like that too. I finished my drink and walked out to the bathroom with them to the bar. They chugged a beer and we went to walk out of sight of this dude. At this point, it's like my world started spinning. I feel really loopy and know something isn't right. But I push myself to get out of the bar thinking, Maybe it's just anxiety of me ditching the douche. Or bad sushi. Hint, it wasn't the sushi. As we walk out of the bar, I start blacking out, and I vaguely remember my arms around my friends as we walk down the sidewalk towards another bar. It seems that the guy saw us leaving and comes running out after us. He proceeds to ask my friends if I am okay, where am I going, can he come with, are they sure I am okay? Maybe he should take me home. They tell him to bugger off and we are going to see a friend of ours down the block. He leaves. Next thing I remember is waking up the next day, vomit everywhere, no clothes, bruises all over my body. Wicked headache. Apparently the rest of the night went like this. I kept telling my friends I think I was drugged, but they thought I was saying I think I am drunk. They didn't know how much I drank before I met up with them. At one bar during the night with them, I collapsed in the middle of the dance floor, and security had to carry me out. My friends opted not to call an ambulance and sat me at a table just outside the bar. They called the last person I texted, which was the second Tinder date I was supposed to have later in the week. Side note, we had not met yet, and said that I was really fucked up, and asked if he could come get me and take me home. He did. Apparently in the car home I was quiet and just kept saying I was drugged and asking who he was. When we arrived at my house, I opened the door and began to projectile vomit all over the parking lot. Being that I could hardly stand, I was collapsing onto the pavement, slamming into cars, etc. The to-be Tinder date that brought me home picked me up and carried me into the house. He got me up to my room and I crawled into the bathroom, making a lot of noise and more. My roommate came out of her room and was like, "Who the fuck are you? What the fuck did you do to her?" And is ripping this dude who genuinely did a really good thing by helping me when he didn't even know me. He explains to her what he knew, what I kept telling him, and that he was just helping me get home safe. He really was. At that point there is a loud as fuck thud in the bathroom. Apparently I had stripped down to my undies, threw up all over, attempted to throw up again, slipped on my bath mat, and slammed my head onto the side porcelain bathtub, leading to a very bad concussion. My roommate is freaking out, trying to tie up my vomit-soaked hair, while I'm trying to crawl out of the bathroom, and I'm crying, etc. The Tinder guy who helped me leaves. I wake up in shock, covered in bruises and vomit with a massive concussion. What sucks the most is that after my friends convinced me to go to the ER to get myself looked at, the doctor gave me a massive lecture on mixing drugs with alcohol. There are a plethora of anti-anxiety meds and sedatives in my system, with some alcohol, of which I had been prescribed some of the anxiety meds in the past, but knew better than to drink and take them because they can seriously mess you up. And I had not taken them in about a month plus, because I never got a new prescription. I tried to explain this to the doctor, but she rolled her eyes and alluded to the fact that I seemed like someone who enjoyed a good time. I should try to be safer in my decisions next time. Fuck that doctor. To top it off, I had posted a Snapchat story of my friends with me in the hospital, with a shout out to their support in being there with me for hours, and the creepy-ass doucher Tinder guy messages me going, "Why are you in the hospital? Did something happen last night? I hope you don't think I did anything to you." Yeah, okay buddy. That doesn't scream guilty as fuck. Anyway, creepy Tinder drugging douche. Let's sure as shit not meet again. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 329. Edit, future Hellfreezer here. I do apologize for deleting the original version of this video. The end of story number 2 was cut off a few seconds premature. Nothing major was lost, but it was rather an abrupt transition between the two stories. I had been making about 14 videos that week, and I think this is the only one with a major mistake in it that I missed. I do apologize, but that's the reason, and I'll now return you to Past Hellfreezer so he may continue his outro. Take it away, Past Hellfreezer. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Well, I'm nearing the end of my my marathon recording session. I think I've gone a bit strange. Good news is I've got one more. Well, I've got one and a bit videos to do after this. Then I'll spend the following day making them all. Of course, by the time you guys hear this, I will literally be making other videos for the rest of the. For coming back, I'll be coming back to make videos because I'll have hopefully enjoyed my week off. Anyway, I think I need to take a break before I continue on. I think I'll start Crow. I think there's a few episodes of that out. I could go see if I can check those on the player thingy. If I remember my login information, they make you log into it now. Anyway, I'm going to hush up and head off now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.